It's episode 628 of the Locked On Rangers podcast. On today's show, I'm talking about the worst loss of the Rangers season, an incredibly frustrating, inexcusable loss, and the Rangers continuing to struggle in these one-run games. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Petrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan since 2010, the host and founder for all 4 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. It is Wednesday, July 6th. Rangers are 37-42, alone in third place in the AL West, 15.5 games back from the Astros in the division, 5.5 back from the Jays in that third wild card. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Bryce Petrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers and subscribe on YouTube. We are inching closer to our goal of 1,000 subscribers by the All-Star break. I think we can do it. We've got like 40-something more to go. Thank you for all 950 plus of you who have already subscribed, and thank you to the next 40-something and so on and so forth that will help us reach that goal. Now, let's get into this game that was the most frustrating loss of the season, the most inexcusable, the most just mind-wrenching garbage game that I have ever seen this season. Maybe ever. This was just incredibly frustrating. I was talking with Connor Newcomb, host of the Locked On Orioles, and we were both bemoaning the absolute travesty that was this baseball game. It was just back and forth, and I was absolutely sure this was going to go to 15 innings. I told them right before Ring No Door came up, I'm like, this is going to go extra innings. I just know it. It's going to go probably at least 15, and we're both going to hate ourselves for watching it. No matter which one of us wins, we're still going to both hate ourselves for watching it. Well, that wasn't true. It didn't go 15 innings, and Connor was overjoyed and was most definitely letting me have it in the DMs and the Locked On group DMs, and I was mad online. I was mad in real life. This was just an absolutely inexcusable loss. But before I get to the awfulness, I want to talk about the good stuff. Because Rangers did do some good things in this one. There were some positive notes. And I think that's what made it even more frustrating, the loss that is. The Rangers scored 9 runs in this one. 9 runs in 9 innings. It was solid work by the offense. Some huge runs and some huge home runs in the clutch. The Rangers had tying or go-ahead home runs in the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings. The first team to lose that in over 15 years, a game where they had game-tying or go-ahead home runs in the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings. Great. Cool. Love being a part of history in losing to the Orioles. But the Rangers did put, 30 on them back in 2007, so I feel like every Rangers loss to the Orioles is just some kind of revenge game on that. But those home runs were hit by Mitch Garver, his 10th. That was a tying home run. Nathaniel Lowe had a 3-run, I believe, game-tying home run at that point, and Corey Seager had a 2-run go-ahead bomb, his 16th of the season, broke his tie with Adolis Garcia to retake the lead all by himself. Garver had 2 big home runs in the last 2 games, and as much as I thought, you know what, Mitch Garver maybe should go ahead and get that surgery, the Rangers do need his bat, but they also, more importantly, need him healthier next year when they're going to be more likely to contend. At this point, especially with these 2 losses, it just feels like this is the hope that they had after May, after a great month of May, one of the best teams in baseball in May, and you see June. Okay, you got a bunch of middling teams in June. You can take advantage of them. You can go and kick up on them and be over 500, and then in July, you really have got some bottom of the barrel teams to beat up on for the month. Like everybody but the Twins that they're facing at the start of the month had a record below 500. That's probably not going to be the case when they play some of them. I mean, Seattle's playing much better right now, and they've got quite a few games against Seattle. Maybe the Angels will figure it out. Keep saying that, and I have to stop myself from laughing, even though I can't, because it's absolutely hilarious, because the Angels will never stop tripping over themselves, hopefully. But this is just looking like a team that still doesn't know how to win, doesn't know how to come together. And, at the beginning of the season, I expected that. It's just they gave me some false hope in June, or in May. And I think that's that's why I'm so frustrated with this. It kind of, you know, ruined my expectations. I mean, this team over the last 2-3 years has been ruining my expectations of my barometer for what does it have to decent baseball team? What does it look like? What does it feel like to, you know, keep your head on like some kind of, you know, middle ground during these horrible losing streaks? I mean, we lost basically most of the season in 2020, and when they did come together, everything was just so go, 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 go. It was hard to get some barometer on it. And same thing last year, they went absolutely in the tank. We at least did have a full season, but it was absolutely horrendous, and it sucked from beginning to end pretty much. And then we had this year where everything was go, 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 go in spring training. You had that whole month cut off of spring training. You started 2 weeks late or however many weeks late it was. And so you were still kind of trying to figure out how to evaluate a team for the first month of the season, which was, again, an awful month. Looks like they were going to lose 200 games this year. I know there's only 162, but that's what it felt like after that month of April. But again, even if they do end up winning, what, they lost 102 games last year. If they end up losing 90 or 88 or something in that range, that's still over a 10-win improvement. And it is still a big jump. And next year is when all the pressure will be on. There is still quite a decent amount of pressure this year because you do still have those big superstars in Semien and Seager. And this is going to be one of, well, theoretically, it should be one of their best years in the contract because they are still at the youngest point they will be throughout the entire contract, obviously, because that's how time works. But still, you want to see them be a little bit better than an 88 loss team or a 90 loss team. I know they're not going to be a 100 loss team. They're not that bad. And even with the struggles at the back end of the rotation and some of these struggles with the pen, they're still not that bad. But overall, offensively, this was a great day. Nathaniel Lowe had a multi-hit game. Also reached base 4 times in total. He had a pair of walks in this one. His OPS on the season is up to 789. 789. He has really been on one the last, month or so, and it was especially very prevalent in the month of June. He has continued that hot streak in whatever month this is, July. He has just been truly up and up and up and up for the last month and a half, and you absolutely love to see it. In the month of June, he had an OPS over 900 and 7 home runs in that span. In the month of July so far, he's hitting 333 on base over 420, slugging 667. He has got a pair of home runs in this month already and 3 walks and 3 strikeouts. The guy has been on fire as you would have wanted him to be. And Mitch Garver, the last 7 games, I talked about how maybe the Rangers do still need his bat, but if they're not going to contend, then it's much more valuable to have him, get the surgery and be healthy and actually catch next year. But for the last 7 games, he has been on an absolute tear. He's got 3 home runs in those last 7 games, a pair of walks and 7 strikeouts, hitting 320, on base 370, slugging 720. The guy has been mashing it lately. We've seen what he can do when he is healthy, when he is on at the plate. He is maybe the best bat on this Rangers team when he is fully healthy, because he has got just that massive power, pretty good eye at the plate, does strike out a little bit, but huge power and a pretty good eye, and good plate discipline in general. The guy has been very, very valuable to the Rangers when he's been in the lineup. It's been frustrating not having him in the lineup. We did know that going in. I mean, as much as it hurt to give up Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, he didn't really have a regular spot, so it doesn't hurt that much. As I loved Ronnie Enriquez, he was still I think I had him as the 15th best prospect in this Rangers organization. He might end up being a reliever, probably will end up being a reliever. So that, for taking a chance on a guy with as good a bat and who, well, when he's healthy, he can catch. That was definitely worth the price. Coming up, we're going to look at Spencer Howard's first start back in this rotation after a great month of June. What went wrong, what went right for him, and what is wrong with this freaking bullpen. But first, this episode is brought to you by Blue Nile. Whether you're ready to pop the question or celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry as unique as her with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. Blue Nile has simple online tools that let you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as setting style. Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then handcraft her perfect engagement ring. Each ring is one of a kind. If you're looking for fine jewelry but having trouble choosing, Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every single budget. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And Locked On Rangers listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement, so use code LOCKEDON. That's code LOCKEDON. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your favorite piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. Now, let's look at this Spencer Howard start. Overall, the numbers don't look great, but I was really encouraged by what I saw from him. Outside of that 4-run inning, he was mostly pretty solid in this one. He went 4 innings, 4 runs. All those were earned, 6 hits and a pair of walks and 2 strikeouts. Now, he was less focused on the strikeouts than he had been before. He did use a much, much better pitch mix than he had been using at the beginning of the year. Now, I don't know what the deal is with StatCast and how they're qualifying things as a cutter versus a sinker, but he was using a cutter versus a slider, but he was using a cutter and a slider very specifically. I was looking at the app, the MLB app, at the Game Day little experience tab. It was calling some of those pitches sliders, but looking on his Baseball Savant page, it doesn't have him throwing a single slider this year. I think that's wrong. I think he was throwing things that were distinctly sliders, different than his cutter. But he was also throwing a sinker, which he did not throw at all in his previous starts at the major league level. He threw 24 sinkers last night. It was pretty effective for him, and it was able to give him a different look. And so every time that he was throwing a fastball, it wasn't just a four-seamer, so that hitters could square it up. And, you know, he did let things get away from him in that inning, but for the most part, he felt pretty balanced out there. He was throwing his curveball way more often than he did earlier in the season. That's great because it's a good curveball. He needs to use it more often and trust that he has more than those 2 pitches. Again, that has been the issue with him. But, you know, he went fairly deep enough into this game. I mean, I would have liked for him to throw more than 68 pitches, but after that big blow up in the second inning, I was fine with whenever they wanted to take him out. All of those runs that he allowed all came in the second inning. But for the most part, he was solid. He did allow quite a few base runners, but he was able to get one of them by picking, I believe it was Cedric Mullins, off, and had a really, really good, it was off at first base. Had a really, really good pickoff move, was pretty crafty over there. There were a couple people from the dugout of Baltimore calling for a block, but he was never called for a block, even when there were guys on first and third. He was still really quick to first base, and, you know, the Rangers have had the issue with holding runners on. Granted, Jonah Heim's pop time isn't the best, but it's still fine. It's serviceable. It's not horrendous. It's not, you can't get any guys out. But the Rangers starting pitchers have not been super great at limiting those runners. Martin Perez has done a pretty decent job. He's also left-handed, so that kind of helps. But some of the other starters and some of the relievers have not done as great a job. Howard was not afraid to throw over at guys, and, you know, since he had quite a few base runners, he had guys to throw over about. But, I mean, Cedric Mullins was still able to get a stolen base off of him. Same with McKenna. Was able to get second base off Spencer Howard. Both of those were off of him, but he was still keeping those guys pretty close. There was a pretty good throw on the stolen base by Mateo, not Mullins. Mullins was not able to get that, but Mateo is, I believe, second in the American League. They showed last night with his 20th stolen base of the season. That was just the case. They were holding him pretty well, and Jonah Heim made a decent throw, but again, the guy's just fast, got a good jump. Sometimes there's just nothing you can do about that, but overall, I liked what I saw from Howard. It was encouraging. It's not great. It's not what you want from a 4th, 5th starter when you're hoping to be a 500 or maybe fighting for that final playoff spot kind of a team. But I don't know that they necessarily are a 500 team at this point. They've kind of showed us what they are. And so when they show you what they are, you believe them, whether it's, you know, an ex-boyfriend, next girlfriend, an abusive baseball team. You believe them when they tell you who they are. And what they've told us over and over again is that this team cannot perform in one-run games. They have been awful in one-run games. Yeah, I know I said it like 4 times, but it merited it. They are 4-16. 4-16 in one-run games. That is just horrible. It is not good. It is not how good this team should be. Like, you should be winning about half those games if you're a half-decent team. The Rangers are a half-decent team. That's what they are this year. They're fine. They're pretty decent. They're scrappy. They'll give even the best teams a run for their money. I mean, heck, they nearly won the series against the Mets in Queens. They nearly won a series against the Yankees in the Bronx. This is a team that can scrap with the best of them. Now, they're probably not going to beat the best of them all that much, but they're not going to get smacked around by pretty much anybody in this league, except for the occasional off day, which, everybody will have. But with a bullpen of guys that, have pretty decent numbers overall, they should not be losing this many one-run games with starting pitchers that are at least putting up mostly solid numbers. I mean, your top three are fairly solid. Glenn Otto is prone to give up a stinker, as is obviously Spencer Howard, and as was Taylor Hearn when he was in the starting rotation at the big league level. But this should not be a team that is 4-16 in one-run games. I want to look really closely at this bullpen. What needs to change? Who needs to change? What the heck can even fix this nonsense? And who is to blame for these last couple of bad games? But first, this episode is brought to you by our folks at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all of your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's NHL playoffs or Major League Baseball. If you want to go make a bet on the Rangers making the playoffs, clearly you've not been listening to what I've been saying or watching this team, and you like being foolish with your money. But if you want to go be foolish, if you're feeling it, then go to betonline.net, the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news, and the best place to bet on every single sport. It's the fastest, easiest way to check in all your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Now, these are two really rough losses by the Rangers and two outings where two of the best Ranger relievers gave up runs in back-to-back games. And that is not something that's happened a whole lot. And it was a really bad outing by Dennis Santana, who has had an ERA below 150 for most of the season, and then gave up just a 3 spot in this one. It was completely erratic, could not really get out of it. John King had to come in and kind of bail him out. But even then, the damage was pretty much done. I mean, Santana went only 2/3 of an inning, allowed 3 hits, 2 walks, 3 runs. All of them were earned. He was just completely unable to get anybody away, and he's been one of the better relievers in baseball this season. Look at his some of his advanced numbers, and they're pretty much all in the red if you look on Baseball Savant. Every single one of them except for strikeout percentage. He is not a big strikeout guy. It's a little frustrating for a guy who has such good stuff. His average exit velocity and his chase rate, fastball velo, hard hit percentage, all those are in the top 10% of baseball. Top 10% for all of baseball. He's been that good. He's got the slider that he's using more often. But his fastball, he's using mostly a sinker. It's averaging at 97 miles an hour. All of his fastballs are. The slider is at 85 and is doing a great job. And then he's throwing that changeup at about 90 miles an hour 15% of the time. So he is a big 3-pitch guy. If you want to count the 4-seamer and the sinker as different pitches, then he's technically a 4-pitch guy. But he's been very effective, and even he will have some of those big blow-up outings. This is just so frustrating because it happened for everybody. All of the best 3, I don't know if you want to throw Brock and Burke in there. I do. But so 3 out of the best 4 Ranger relievers gave up runs in this one, and 2 of the best ones, Barlow and Moore, gave up runs in back-to-back games. I mean, in the last game, we had the walk-off hit by pitch by Matt Moore. That's not great. Barlow also gave up runs. In that one, had a blown save. He's got 4 on the season. And all those have come in his last 8 attempts. He's blown half of his last 8 save opportunities. That's not great, but there's not a whole lot of other options to bring in there. The rest of these guys are in pretty defined roles. Maybe you want to put Dennis Santana in there. He's been a little bit better than him. His expected numbers are a lot better than Joe Barlow's. Barlow's numbers are not super great. I mean, you look at the bottom few, he's not walking a lot of guys. Fastball velo is in the top 30%. Same with his chase rate, whiff rate, and fastball spin rate. All those in the top 30%. But some of his expected numbers are really, really bad. I mean, his average exit velo, expected ERA, expected slugging, expected WOBA, barrel percentage, all those are in the bottom 12% of baseball. His barrel percentage is in the bottom 5%, expected slugging in the bottom 3% of all of baseball. But he's still been able to put up fairly decent overall numbers. But again, it's kind of concerning. He's still average exit velocity guys in the bottom 10% of the league, still being a fairly effective closer. His overall numbers are pretty solid: a 3.18 ERA, 13 saves, 22 strikeouts in 28 and a third innings, and a WHIP under 1.0. So again, I don't really know that he is a long-term closer. I would very much feel better about one of Jonathan Hernandez or Jose Leclerc stepping back into that role. Obviously, Leclerc's going to take a little bit of time. He did have a pretty nice 2-inning outing. I believe that was on Monday. It might have been on Sunday. I can't remember. But a 2-inning shutout outing. Love to see that for him. He's still getting his sea legs under him. He's still pretty much hasn't pitched for that rehab, hadn't pitched at the big league level in 2 years, so it's going to take him a little while. Jonathan Hernandez, I thought would be back up by now. He had a really solid stretch of 5 games where he didn't walk anybody. That was one of his big problems this year. And then on July 2nd, had a pretty bad outing, allowed a home run and a pair of walks. Just the one run, though, in his July 2nd outing at Las Vegas, which, again, it's Vegas. Balls will fly out there, so it might not have been a home run in a bunch of other places, but still the 2 walks in that outing after a series of outings where he had not allowed any walks was more of a problem than that home run, I would say, just because it's Vegas. But again, he's going to be up sometime soon, and I don't know who specifically needs to go down. Maybe it's John King. John King has had a couple of blow-up outings. He's been good at times, but he's been bad at times. I mean, that's basically the entire story of this whole bullpen. I mean, Matt Moore, his expected numbers are really, really great as well. Look at all this stuff: barrel percentage, expected ERA, batting average, hard hit percentage, WOBA, expected slugging, all those in the top 10 or 11% of baseball. He has been just straight up fantastic. Striking guys out, getting them to chase, getting them to whiff. Fastball spin rate, all those are great. Same with his fastball velo, is 94. It is up from where it has been. He's been in that multi-inning reliever kind of role, and he's been super, super effective. The only thing he struggles with is those walks, but they haven't come back to bite him that much because he's not getting hit around that much. So he's in the bottom 5% of the league of walk rate. That's still not great, especially for a high-leverage reliever, but you can get away with it. You can get away with it if you're not allowing very hard-hit balls, not allowing a lot of home runs or extra base hits and things like that. It's still a little concerning, but you can kind of get away with it, and he pretty much has for the most part. But again, this bullpen is not as great as it was for that stretch in May. They're not this bad either. They're kind of an okay bullpen to sometimes subpar. And you know what, for this team, that's fine. I don't expect them to go buy bullpen arms at the deadline. That would be stupid, I think, if they want to get a starting pitcher who has got multiple years. I think that would be the move. I think they will try to be more of buyers than they are sellers. But again, you get those bullpen arms when you think you're right there in contention, because you're leveraging your future for this 1 year usually, because you can't trust relievers to be consistent from year to year for the most part. So unless they want to go get some top of the line kind of closer those guys that are going to be pretty darn good from year in, year out, and that costs a lot of prospect capital. I don't see them doing that. But again, they shouldn't be this bad in these one-run games. I don't know what exactly has to change. Maybe putting a guy in there with a little more experience whenever Leclerc feels better, or Jonathan Hernandez gets up and starts to look like himself again. Maybe you put some of those guys back in those roles and push Barlow down into a less stressful role. I think that might be the move, because it looks like things might be getting to him just a little bit in these one-run games. He converts most of his save opportunities with a multi-run lead, and he has had a penchant lately of giving up at least one run or several base runners and not having so many perfect innings and not having nearly as many strikeouts that you'd like to have from your closer. But still, these things happen. It's a frustrating loss, and it just kind of hits the nail in the coffin of this is not quite a team ready to fight for that playoff spot in the final month of the season, which is okay. They're going to be better than they were, but it's still really frustrating after the amount of hope that they gave us in that fantastic month of May. Just let me go back there and enjoy that for just a little bit longer, because I don't think I took nearly as much joy from it as I should have. That's going to do it for today's episode. I'll be back tomorrow talking about this final game of the Orioles series, and then on Friday I'll have a crossover with our Locked On Twins host to preview this weekend's series. That's going to do it for today's episode. Until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.